I did a thing that's probably been done a couple of times already in the past here. Well, I'm kind of still doing the thing, as you can see. On the right, I'm using Opus 4.6. On the left, I am using Codex, the latest version. I think it's 5.3, if I'm not mistaken. I could be jumbling up the versions here. And what I'm doing is I'm building a decision engine. All right, now as this thing is still building, let's head over to what Codex created, okay? So we have some benchmarks here that we're gonna take a look at, but really let's look at the primary command here, which is the accuracy command, okay? And what this is doing is it's benchmark harness for agent model accuracy selection. You're passing in the benchmark that you want to test again. And notice Codex gave me a couple of examples here that I can try. Now, the overall decision engine itself falls under this score.py, all right? And then you can see that it's going against correctness, quality, reliability, cost efficiency, and latency. And it's pretty simple. So to me, there's nothing really like AI centric in terms of figuring out what I'm doing. Is it accurate? Does it have correctness? Does it have reliability? Does it have quality? Like, how is it quantifying these things here? Is it just kind of guessing? Well, let's, kind of keep going and see here if there's anything else within the code base. So we have the command, okay? And then, okay, so internal here, we can see there's some evaluation metrics. All right, so this is the real logic, okay? Here's our configuration here. Right, this is just loading the YAML, loading the candidates, loading the profiles, the model itself. So creating some types, again, for the correctness, quality, reliability, cost efficiency, latency, a report, which is great, and then the runner. But again, I'm not really seeing, I guess like the biggest piece that I'm seeing, if I just minimize the stuff here, is the Python evaluation here, which again, this is almost just like the scorecard, right? But how is it actually going and evaluating these configurations for me? Okay, so it almost seems like it's maybe guessing in a sense. Okay, so we have the internal piece here, all right? We have the score, which, this, the more I look at this now, this is pretty much just saying it scored a 1 or it scored a 4 or it scored a 10 or it scored a whatever, right? But like, how is it actually, doing that? Like, how is it scoring this info? And then we can see some results, schemas. Okay, so that's about it, right? So if I, let's say go ahead and run this. Oh, actually real quick, I'll show you. Here are the examples that I gave, right? So based on the configuration that you give it, like what I want to do, I want to build a Go API, all right? And it's going to be a new feature and the difficulty is going to be medium and yada, yada, right? What this is essentially saying is based on this configuration, what model should I be using? What agent skills should I be using? What MCP server should I be using? Like, this is the task that I want to do. What is the best LLM and best agent skill and best overall configuration that I need to ensure accuracy and quality of this specific task here? Now with the Opus output, we seem to have gotten a little bit more in terms of, this isn't just a mock configuration here, right? So we have our commands. So our recommendation command, our adapters command import, and we can see, everything here. So adapters list registered adapters and validate connectivity, completion for the auto completion, importing pre-recorded agents, the recommendation engine, generating some benchmarks, executing the benchmarks, and then scores and validations here, which is awesome. We can see what all these commands kind of map up to here. So for example, the adapter logic here, and then we also have some logic around Claude Code, Codex, K-Agent, and then some mock integration. So what this does, if we go back to Claude Code, It's essentially benchmarking against these agents, right? Or rather these LLMs, so like Claude Code and Codex. So if you look here, for example, we have Claude Code where it's executing tasks via Claude Code CLI, but then this one here is executing tasks via Codex CLI. So this is where like it's benchmarking between the two to see which one gives you the best output. All right, so we have the CMD, we have the internal, where we can also see the model configurations for the candidate, profile, recommendations, etc., which I'm going to talk about in a second. And then the recommendation engine, reporting, etc., right? All the logic that's needed for getting our output. Now, if we go to benchmarks, right, we have candidates, profiles, rubrics, and tasks, right? And this is kind of where the magic happens in terms of the information that you put in. So if we open up the README, we can see, scrolling down, tasks are the benchmark exercise you test agents against. So if I open up the task here, you can see, okay, this is what I wanted to do. This is the reference, right? This is the prompt. This is what it should be checking, right? So these are the tasks that we want to benchmark against, right? And then our candidates are the agents and the models that we're using to benchmark. So like, for example, is it going to be Claude Code or is it going to be Codex? The profiles define how task categories and scoring objectives are weighted. And then last but not least, the rubrics define the scoring criteria for each category, right? So again, this scored a 5 out of 10 or a 7.5 out of 10 or whatever. So as we can see, we definitely have a lot more output here in comparison to Opus. So let's go ahead and actually, try to run one of these. All right, so I'm going to scroll up here. We already have the accuracy binary built. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say accuracy run. All right, now this is mode mock. Now I don't want to do mock mode. So let's see. Okay, mode, mock, live, offline, and the default is mock. So what we're going to do is we're going to say mode live. All right, and it's running these 7 candidates. Now you may be wondering, okay, how is it actually running? Like how does it know what to look at? And if I open up the run commands here, okay, we can see by default, it's looking at benchmarks and candidates via the benchmarks directory. So by default, it's going here, right? However, we can, of course, specify within the command where we want it to look, okay? So we can see here it ran successful 48, errors 8. So it ran through all of the benchmarks that are here. That's why you see so many. And then we can score the results. So let's go ahead and do this, except the result is going to be run. Yep, that's the one there. Oh, that was the wrong one. So results run now.json. In is the results that we actually want to pass in, which is this one here. So run. Yeah, there we go. All right, cool. So we can see that output here. Codex base, the mock, because again, remember we're passing everything in, right? So Codex, the mock stuff, Opus, Sonnet, etc. And we can see all of the output here in terms of cost, latency, and the overall score. And it looks like I have to fix up some of the stuff around cost because I would assume that we would see some cost here, right? At least something. So I'll have to fix that up. But point being is the output that we see within this decision engine we created real quick with one prompt via Opus definitely has, in my opinion, a better result than Codex. And I think that's important because as people are beginning to use these tools, they might not be expert prompters or experts in agent skills and what agent skills they should be using, etc. Like they might just be opening up their it, terminal, right? And being like, hey, I want to build this thing. Can you go help me, right? So I think that it's definitely important to get a good understanding of the defaults of where our models are currently at and the tooling that we're using.